Mother Knows Death, starring Nicole and Jemmy and Maria Q. Kane.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mother Knows Death. What a week of news, right? Since last time we talked on Thursday?
Yeah, there has been so many breaking stories just in the last couple of days that we couldn't wait till Thursday's episode because that would have to be a 3-hour episode. There's just so much that went on. We can't cut it all out.
Oh my God, I just can't. So today we'll talk about the obvious stories that happened since we last talked to you guys on Thursday, and then this Thursday, hopefully nothing crazy will happen. It'll just be a regular news episode with all the other crazy things that are happening in this world. So let's get started with the obvious biggest story of this week.
So the obvious story of this week is the potential assassination of former President Donald Trump. So, I don't know exactly what you were doing, but I just got home from a lovely day of blueberry picking with my cousins. I was just sitting on the couch watching Housewives, scrolling through Instagram as someone would do on a normal Saturday night. And all of a sudden, I see this video that said Trump had been shot. So I'm like, no way. Because you know how Instagram is, and with AI and everything, you just don't know and everything, right? So my first reaction is I'm going to turn on the news. So I turn on the news, and this video is on repeat. And I'm like, what happened? I don't even understand what happened. So I'm just watching it, and they didn't know at first if it was a confirmed shooting, but I had seen a raw video of it with the sound, and it sounded like bullets to me. And then you see him grab his ear, and then he's tackled to the ground, and people in the background are freaking out, and the whole scene was just nuts. So I texted you and said, did you see the news? And you were like, no.
Well, because Gabe and I were on a date at the Ethiopian restaurant, and we were just sitting there, and you texted me like, oh my God, did you see the news? And I was like, holy shit. But so Gabe and I were just like, of course, like this is going to be what we're talking about for the rest of our date instead of just like reconnecting for the week or whatever we normally do. So, but yeah, and of course, like I'm not getting into anything that has to do with this. I just want to talk about the wounds and what happened because that's kind of my specialty. So let's talk about first. One of the things that was circulating on the internet that I saw was that he didn't once we got confirmation that people actually got shot, which was, I felt like I knew that right away. And the most disturbing part of rewatching that video is listening to that woman scream a couple seconds in, which I assume had something to do with the firefighter that was killed in front of his wife and his children, because it was just such a blood-curdling scream that you knew something really, really bad happened. And my heart breaks for that part of the story, especially because he's Gabe's age fireman. He's a girl dad, like the same thing. And Gabe would 100% do that for us. So that part of the story was just so just the whole situation is just upsetting, but it was very devastating to hear that. So at first I was hearing things that, Trump wasn't really shot. They had shot at the teleprompter and then the glass had cut his ear. And I'm kind of here to say what would happen if he went to the hospital with one of these wounds and how they would be able to tell what caused the injury. Because, I mean, that could happen, I guess, in theory, right? So this is a distant gunshot wound. The guy was really far away, so you're not going to see the typical things that you would see on the skin of a gunshot wound if somebody was standing closer to him. So the next thing is that we know, because we watched it live on TV, that he was injured on his ear. And so it didn't penetrate his skull, obviously. So it essentially looks like it pierced his ear, right? On the news, they're saying that he had a graze wound. And a graze wound, I kind of disagree with that, because a graze wound is when the bullet goes on the superficial surface of the skin and kind of drags along the skin, so it makes an abrasion or like a really big scrape across the skin. And because it doesn't penetrate the skin, it doesn't hit blood vessels and wouldn't cause it to bleed like that. So I don't really think it's a graze wound, right? So it could be one of two other things. It could be a tangential wound, which is when the bullet goes through the subcutaneous layer of the skin and almost rips through it like a laceration or tears through the skin. And obviously that would rupture blood vessels and cause a lot of bleeding like we saw. Or it could just be like an in and out, like it literally pierced the top of his ear. As you know, if you've ever cut your head or anything, your scalp is very vascular. Your ear is super vascular. The external carotid artery is going right up your neck, which is supplying oxygen to your brain. And the two branches that come, or a couple branches that come off of that, are supplying the ear. So it's very close to the carotid artery, which is a huge artery with a lot of blood. So it would make you bleed a lot. Now, when he goes to the hospital, they could say, okay, the teleprompter shattered or whatever, like what happened here? And I'm saying just based on what I know, what we would do at autopsy and stuff, that if you're looking at a wound, you could tell the difference between a gunshot wound and a wound that would have been caused by shattered glass. So the glass in the teleprompter, I would assume, is probably not tempered like you would see in a car, because why would it ever get shot and break like that? So it'd probably break like a normal pane of glass, which would leave shards of glass embedded in the skin if it shattered like that. On top of that, glass leaves incisional wounds or sharp wounds, which have a different look than a blunt wound or a laceration would have. And that's something that they would be able to determine at the hospital. And based upon the fact that all reports are indicating that he was shot, I would just say that that's probably true.
Yeah, I mean, the whole scene was scary. I mean, we almost saw something totally catastrophic go on live television, and I don't think a lot of people realized just how close of a call it was if he hadn't turned his head at the very last second.
Well, and if you do see the photos of the aftermath of the fireman that was shot, there was an ER doctor there that was at the rally and attended to this guy that was shot in the head. And he said he was bleeding so profusely from his head and there was brain matter on the bleachers. And that's how he knew. I mean, he tried to save him, but like obviously he's an ER doctor and he just knew that that was really bad. And all of us could have been watching that on TV with the former president as well, just getting his head blown like that. I mean, it's similar to what happened with President Kennedy too.
Yeah, of course. And I called Pop-Up about this because Pop-Up was in high school when Kennedy was shot, which is so crazy to think about. He was in high school when that happened. But I just wanted to see his reaction. I actually haven't seen one on television, right? He was watching it. And he was just
remember he gave me the newspaper from when he got shot, when Kennedy got shot?
Yeah. And
Pop-Up still had it.
It's just kind of crazy to talk to somebody that's alive during these events, because I've certainly never witnessed something like this in my lifetime, or even if something like this did happen when I was alive, I didn't remember it. So this is kind of the first time I'm an adult and something this major happened, so of this caliber. But
yeah, Ronald Reagan was shot too, but do you know what year that was? I was definitely, I feel like it was in the early 80s or something. So it's nothing I would have remembered, but yeah, it is crazy. And it's crazy just thinking about all of this stuff leading up to this and just thinking like, it's 2024, all this stuff that gets done. Like, how could something like this happen? And, it just goes to show you, if these like VIP people aren't safe, then none of us are safe, which is also just another scary thought, really, that you're at a place that's surrounded with people with all of the top equipment and guns, and they still can't prevent something like that. That's, I think, what's the scariest part of it for just being an average citizen,
Yeah, I mean, my first thought going into it was, I saw from the footage, like, they were on a farm, but there was buildings around the farmland where they were. And I just can't believe in today's day and age that they would even risk that. And I mean, an investigation still has to happen. We don't know exactly how this guy even knew to go up there and execute this the way he did, or like what happened that led to this whole event going down. But that was scary in itself for me.
Well, these are the two options, okay? Either these people are completely incompetent and horrible at their job, which is probably true just based upon how the rest of the government runs, or it's like an inside thing, right? Like there's no good thing that's coming out of this. Like it's terrible either way.
Well, did you ever see that meme of Spider-Man like pointing to all the different Spider-Mans? I feel like that's what's happening right now. It's like Secret Service is pointing at local police, who's pointing at another department, who's pointing at another department. Like, why don't we stop playing the blame game and just figure out where the error occurred and try not to let it happen again?
Because it's a big deal. Like it's, you know, a lot of people are in charge of these things in multiple levels, and it was just like, regardless of what happened, it happened. So,
yeah,
whatever. At least that's nothing that we need to worry about with our jobs. We're just reporting the news and trying to educate you guys a little bit on. Sometimes the news, you know, they always use the word laceration when somebody gets stabbed and shit, and it drives me freaking crazy. So I think it's important for us to be like, for us at least on Mother Knows Death, to be a little bit more specific about what happened.
Yeah, totally. And like all political beliefs and everything aside, let's acknowledge that a person died as a result of this, and him and his family should be honored accordingly, and everybody should be respectful towards them because somebody lost their lives and a couple other people are seriously injured from this. So
yeah, especially since, you know, we're a fire family and we just have a special spot in our heart for that, you know?
Yeah, totally. But why don't we get on to this Alec Baldwin thing? Because this was like, I feel like this was starting off the weekend of craziness for me. So again, I'm just chilling on my couch Friday night, scrolling through my phone, and then I just see that Alec Baldwin's criminal trial that just started at the beginning of last week had already been dismissed.
A part of me is like, oh, okay, you know, oh, cool. Like, but we knew this was going to happen.
Yeah,
I knew he wasn't going to get in trouble, and I was surprised, but not surprised.
Yeah, I'm more surprised at how it went down. So basically, what happened is they were doing preliminary hearings at the beginning of last week, and then I think they were only 2 days into testimony when the defense filed a hearing, or I don't know the proper terminology. They filed a motion to dismiss the case because it came to light that the prosecution had evidence that they did not disclose to the defense, which therefore did not give them a fair enough chance to defend it or give Alec Baldwin a fair shot at winning this trial. So that's a huge issue for many reasons. This evidence was apparently cataloged under a different case number, so even if the defense knew about it and went to look for it, they wouldn't be able to find it. So there was just many problems, and I can't believe an issue like this, like the defense is spending the prosecution is spending all this time building this case trying to get him, and then they make this super amateur hour mistake, and the whole thing is thrown away now. Like, what are you doing?
It's just, I guess it's just sloppy police work. And that's the thing that you have to realize is most important. And it's not just with police jobs, but it's with any jobs, like jobs in the lab or anything. There's people at all different levels, from secretary all the way up to the top. And everyone's job is important. And the people that were logging those things may have been just people at the bottom that were doing it, or it might have been top level detectives. Like, I don't really know how that works because I don't work in that field, but everyone along the way has to be neat and concise in order for like the whole entire system to work. And something as simple as writing the wrong number or being sloppy or not paying attention or anything could have led to this. And I mean, honestly, I really don't care that much because I was just like, you know what, this dude's like uber famous and he's going to get out of this anyway. Like, it just, how often do these types of people get in trouble for something, really?
Yeah, and I mean, I want to just say, I heard it first at CrimeCon because I actually went to a really good lecture about this shooting, and it was presented by Court TV. They had Dutch Merrick, who's a gun safety expert. He is also an armorer on some movies, so I thought his presentation was so beneficial to me because he just explained all these potential things that could have went wrong. You know, Alec Baldwin was really, really adamant that he did not pull the trigger, and Dutch was able to show how that might actually have been true with that type of gun. So I thought that was really interesting. And then Hannah Gutierrez Reed, who was the armorer, her defense attorney was there too, and he was pointing out how they didn't think this trial with Alec Baldwin was going to be successful because in the gross room, if you remember, we had covered this case I feel like early last year, right? In like early 2023, so about a year and a half after it occurred. So we waited for some time until we had a lot of information about this, and basically what we discovered was that, you know, there was negligence on her part, certainly, but there was this whole other, like, where did these bullets come from? So then they were looking into the supplier. So what I learned at CrimeCon was that the supplier actually, when they were showing pictures of his office, it was insane, the disorganization in there, and the police...
Like, it looked like my desk?
Yeah. It looked like a total hoarder's den, like stuff everywhere, but he had live bullets and he had the dummy bullets, right? So the point they were trying to make at CrimeCon is like, they're not even looking into this guy who's a major part of this equation. And that's kind of what came up here, was that they had all this new evidence about these live bullets that had been on set, and they weren't admitted to the proper evidence. So how are these people going to look in it and have a proper chance to defend it? You know, the prosecution was really going hard trying to prove that he pulled the trigger, while the defense was trying to see where the bullets actually came from and how they got on that set. So I just think that this whole entire case was a total mess. It wasn't handled properly. I don't know. Like, I'm not surprised, as you said, that it was canceled. I was just surprised how quick it got dismissed and over something this idiotic.
Yeah, and I mean, I really go back and forth with this case because, like, I just part of it is I just have this distaste for Alec Baldwin and his annoying life and family. So I think that part of it is just me being like annoyed that, you know, this mom and, you know, her son, she had one son, the mom, she was married, she's dead, and it's like they still go on with their annoying, showy, attention-seeking life, and they have this new TV show coming out, and it's like there's no consequences. I think I'm annoyed by that. But at the same time, I think, let's say, for example, you're filming Pulp Fiction, right? And you are showing scenes of people snorting coke, and you have somebody and you want it to look like they're really doing it in slow motion or something. So you have them like snort flour up their nose or something. And so you're an actress, right? You're Uma Thurman and you're getting ready to snort some flour. And then all of a sudden you find out that the flour is actually really cocaine, and you've never had cocaine in your life, and you like have a cardiac arrhythmia and drop dead, right?
Yeah.
Well, is that her fault because she's on a movie set and she was told it was flour?
So this is where a lot of the argument stems from this case, right? Is like, if you look at it just this way, it's like he's just an actor that was handed a gun by a person whose responsibility was to make sure there was no live ammunition in it. He believed that it had no live bullets in it, and therefore he accidentally misfired it, right? Like, what I learned at CrimeCon was like all the proper steps of how these guns are loaded on sets was ignored. Basically, the armorer with another person in the production and the actor are all supposed to check each bullet together. So 3 people are supposed to be crowded around this. The armorer is supposed to shake each dummy in front of 2 witnesses that are handling this weapon potentially and loading it. So all 3 eyes know exactly what went into this, right? But that's not what happened in this case. And Alec Baldwin wasn't just an actor. He was an executive producer that had a lot of responsibility for safety on this set that was ignored. But if you want to go in the gross room and read all about the negligence that happened, the walk-off that morning on set, the people that weren't there, they also brought up a really good point that Helena Hutchins might not have walked off of set that day like the rest of her crew members because she was waiting for her big break in the industry, and this was a big deal for her. So why would she walk off when this was potentially a major film for her, right? She wanted to make a name for herself in the industry, and this was her chance. Everything that went wrong.
I just don't understand why they can't make a movie set gun that actually seems like it's a gun without the potential to ever be a real gun.
Well,
like it just like think about the things that they could make in this world. The iPhone, they can't, and all the money Hollywood has, they just can't figure out how to make a fake movie prop gun.
Well, I don't think they've needed to, because there has been thousands upon thousands of productions with firearms, and this is the only time something like this has happened.
It's not the only time.
Well, with a live bullet. With Brandon Lee, it was like this weird dummies they were making. Like, that's totally different. This is the only time in film history somebody's been killed with a live bullet. So think of how many shows have guns, how many movies have guns. Everything that went wrong could have, and that's why this happened.
I understand that, but like if you're an actor, and I understand that you're supposed to still do all these checks, but like why would there ever be a real ammunition in that situation?
Well, there shouldn't be. So like my opinion is, if Alec Baldwin was just an actor on this movie and this happened, I wouldn't be so gung-ho going after making sure he gets held accountable for this. It's everything that led up to this moment. It's hiring an inexperienced armorer to save money, having known safety issues on set and ignoring them, having this supplier that clearly they weren't really looking into because his office was a complete mess.
That makes me curious as to why the prosecution isn't even checking to see how those things got there.
Because Baldwin's the big name and they want to take him down. So Hannah Gutierrez-Reed was convicted earlier this year and she's serving an 18-month sentence. So somebody is being held responsible for this, but Alec Baldwin is obviously the biggest name behind this. And honestly, if he didn't handle it the way he did, I just don't really agree with how he's handled this whole thing. It's like, in my opinion, this happened. He should have disappeared for 6 months, let it die down, and then did all the court cases accordingly and went on with his life. Instead, it's like him and the wife are all over social media being obnoxious, and I don't really like that. And then I don't know if you saw this too, but I saw an article last week that was like, cameras in the courtroom aren't for the Baldwin's new reality show. It's for a documentary they're filming about him doing this court case.
Yeah, I mean, they're gross people. Like I said, like I already listen. They lost all of my respect with the whole cucumber Ilaria whatever shit. Like this shit she's trying to pull off with the accent and stuff. I think it's so bizarre. And I think it's even more bizarre that they have any fans that go along with that. It's just so weird to me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like
can you explain? Can you just, for people that don't like follow these trashy people, can you just explain a little bit about that? Because it's freaking annoying.
His wife, whose name is Hillary, goes by Ilaria, which is the Spanish version of saying Hillary. She is basically pretended to be from Spain and be this like Spanish cultural icon, right? When really she's from Boston.
This little like Spitfire Spanish girl that married Alec Baldwin, and she's just a white girl from Boston or from Massachusetts. Who used to travel to Spain or something in the summer.
Yeah, it would be like me being really invested in French and Parisian culture, going to France a couple times, and then all of a sudden speaking with a French accent and telling people I'm from Paris. Like that is
your name's Marie.
Yeah, exactly. She is role-playing as a Spanish person, and it's weird, and there's theories.
But why is everyone going along with it and being okay with it? I mean, I know people are making fun of her and shit. Wait, say about the cucumber thing.
So she was on like the Today Show or something doing a cooking segment, and she was talking about cucumbers, but she goes, "Oh, how you say cucumber? Like, you speak English, bitch."
Oh my God. It just drives me nuts. It drives me nuts that they have to have a fan base because they're getting a TV show. So like somebody's going to watch it.
Listen, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to watch it because I've been invested.
You're the problem
in her weird like cultural misappropriation her entire life. Like, I don't understand what happens. It's kind of like, I even understand, like, if you're an American and you marry somebody from England, how you might slightly adopt to their accent mildly because you're just around it so often. But, like, totally faking a cultural identity is weird. And I don't think enough people are talking about how weird it is. And they keep calling
it's
her
so weird.
hilarious. Like, her name is Hillary. She is from Boston, Massachusetts.
And then she named one of her kids Ilaria with the I, right?
All the kids have Spanish names.
Yeah, it's just like the weirdest thing ever. I just can't wrap my brain around it. And then that's why I already was kind of like, these people are the biggest flakes ever. And then that happened with Helena.
The theory is that when he was on 30 Rock, he had a storyline where he was married to like Salma Hayek, I believe. And she was this persona, like this spitfire, hot Latina lady, right? So then right after that, he meets Hillary at a restaurant or whatever. And then she was like, oh, well, I heard he's into that, so I'm going to act like that. And then I don't think she actually thought they were going to like follow through and get married, right? But do you think in their marriage that he's like asking her about her childhood and her life? Do you think he gives a shit?
No. And I don't give a shit to talk about these people anymore. So let's get on to the next story.
All right. Shannen Doherty, who we've covered a lot on this podcast, she has died at age 53 from her breast cancer.
Oh, God, that's so sad. I mean, it's unfortunate, but like when you're diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, living along into old age is just so rare. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And especially, what was it? 2 years ago, she had it metastasized to her brain. Or no, 4 years ago, 2020?
No,
She had surgery
2023, it had gone to the brain. So last summer. And that's, I think,
okay.
when I think we first reported it before the podcast was public that it had gone to her brain. Yeah, but she has had a long history with it.
Yeah, I mean, that's just not good. I'm actually surprised because I thought that was going to come soon after, and she stayed alive for almost a year after that. So that was good on her doctor's part.
Her love, I never watched 90210, but her love interest was Luke Perry, right?
Oh, you need to watch 90210.
I know.
I was a little, because now that I think back, like, Jesus Christ, I was Lillian's age when that came out, and it's probably way too much for
inappropriately.
It really is, because it's like a bunch of like hot teenagers, and they're all having sex and stuff, and it's just like, you're not there in your life right now when you're in middle school, so it's, you know what I mean? It's not good, but for you, it would be great to watch.
Well, that's what I was trying to tell you yesterday about Bridgerton, because I keep hearing Lulu listening to songs from the soundtrack, and it can just seem like this really innocent, beautiful show, but it's kind of like porn on TV, so like don't let them watch it.
This is what I hate about all of their things they watch, like Netflix and shit. It's like if you put the family, what's that called? Like to block them from watching certain things.
Oh, like the parental controls?
Yeah. I just feel like it's like, okay, they could watch Blue's Clues or they could watch porn. There's like no in between. There's no like, you really can't narrow certain things down. It's the same with YouTube Kids. It's like they could either watch Coco Melon or whatever the hell that show is, or everything else. Like, they just need to work that stuff better, because whatever.
Yeah.
Just side note.
I wouldn't let them watch 90210 probably quite yet, but I was going to
No,
say,
it's good for you.
Didn't Luke Perry die really young too, in his early 50s?
Yeah, he had a stroke. So yeah, he did. He died really young too. I actually did a celebrity death dissection on him in the gross room as well. So it is really a shame, and it's sad too when you really hear her story, because she kind of seemed like she wanted to have children, and the cancer diagnosis. I mean, she was diagnosed with cancer pretty young as a person. And then when she got diagnosed with the metastatic brain cancer, wasn't it like right before she went in to get the surgery, she found out her husband was cheating on her or something like that, or had filed for divorce? It was something like totally just terrible. And I mean, she seemed like she was a decent person. I saw a post yesterday that Tori Spelling did about her that was really, really nice. And it's just sad when anybody dies so young, you know?
No, it is. And then, all right, so this is like the beginning of the celebrity deaths over the weekend. So next hit was Richard Simmons. So he was a famous fitness instructor. I mean, I'm sure most people have seen his like crazy videos. He had a very unique persona. I
love him.
Did Mom used to watch those? I feel like that's something she'd be into.
I feel like she did, because I definitely knew about him and I was like, oh my God, this guy's so outrageous. But I also loved him. I thought he was so cute. And I just love people that are very unique like that. You know what I mean?
So earlier this year, he said he had skin cancer. So I think that was everybody's initial thought that that's how he died. But according to his housekeeper, he was feeling pretty dizzy on Friday night, which was his 76th birthday, and he fell in his bathroom. The housekeeper wanted him to go get medical attention, but he really did not want to leave the house, especially because it was his birthday, and he said he'd consider going the next day. But then when she went into his room the next morning, he was found unresponsive next to his bed, and he had died.
So this could be a pretty interesting autopsy, actually. The medical examiner has said that it's not suspicious and it's just pending investigation. So, and the reason for that is he was complaining. His brother also said that he was saying that he might have had a stomach bug or something like that. Like he just wasn't feeling well. So just because he fell doesn't mean that he died from the fall. He could have had any kind of number of issues if he was having GI distress, or you were saying he felt dizzy. I mean, there's a lot of different things that could have happened that caused him to fall, and then that he died from that. Like he could have had a heart attack and then or he could have fell and then went to bed and had a heart attack because something was already kind of brewing. You know, the fall might not have killed him. So they'll do the autopsy and they'll rule out trauma. So they'll look to see, like, usually if you fall and you die, the cause of death would be like a brain bleed or something like that. And so if they don't see that, they'll see like, well, what happened? Did he have a heart attack? Did he have some kind of GI perforation or something? Like there's just a million things that could go wrong. So these are the reasons that autopsies are good, though, because then it could figure out like if it was an accidental death or a natural death.
Yeah, totally. All right, next hit was Shelley Duvall. She was most famous for being in The Shining. She had died over the weekend at 75 years old from complications from diabetes.
So, yeah, same thing. She, older, you know, all these people that we're going to talk about, the next couple of people are older. She had diabetes. She was apparently on hospice for a couple months, and really she was bedbound because she had some kind of a foot injury. A lot of times people with diabetes, you know, the diabetes really ruins your blood vessels. So the pathology that could be life-threatening could be damage to the vessels surrounding the heart, the coronary arteries, or the carotid arteries, which could cause a stroke. And also when you have damage to those vessels, you also have damage to the vessels that supply oxygen to your legs. So you can have something simple like go get a you know, how many times do we go get a pedicure and they cut your foot or something? Well, when you have diabetes, it's difficult for the oxygenated blood to get down there and heal those wounds. And then they all of a sudden become ulcers. And then next thing you know, you have gangrene and you have to get an amputation. So
yeah,
that's a possibility as to why she wasn't able to walk around anymore. Like we don't hear about any celebrity deaths for months, and then all of a sudden it's like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, so I guess when you want to say celebrities as in like Hollywood personalities and everything, deaths come in 3, but we had a 4th death, which was sex expert Dr. Ruth at 96 years old.
She has a very interesting life.
Very cool life.
Yeah, she, and I feel like a lot of her, struggles that she went through as a young person it really builds resilience, you know what I mean? And I think that could contribute to why she had such a long life. And apparently she's this little tiny thing, but she was in the Israeli army as a sniper shooter. It's like, how badass is that?
Well, first badass thing is she like escaped Nazi Germany, which is wild, and then she goes on to have this other like crazy life in the Israeli army. She studied psychology in Paris in the 50s. She became a doctor in her 40s. Then she went on to like teach at schools before she got this hit radio show talking about sex advice in the 80s, which was like revolutionary at the time. And she's this cute little woman just very bluntly talking about sex and saying forbidden words like penis and vagina on air. I know before that nobody could even say those out loud. And then she had a TV show. I mean, she was pretty cool.
Yeah, she was really cool. And my favorite quote she has is, "When it comes to sex, the most important 6 inches are the ones between the ears." I love that. She just had these like, and it's true. Like she just had like really good tips and stuff. And she attributed a lot of her success just saying that because she was old fashioned, which is interesting because the way that she talked about sex and stuff is like everything opposite of being old fashioned, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, her tagline was "Get some," so it's pretty.
Yeah,
cool.
but she still, even if you read her advice today, it's relevant and it's good, and it's good for especially being in like long-term relationships and marriages and stuff. She like knew her shit, man.
Yeah, for sure. And it's cool to have like somebody, out there just being this like cute little grandma presence, just being out there with like the coolest sex advice. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, very cool. She lived a very cool life. All right, so that's going to be it today, right? We're not going to do questions today, right?
No, we'll keep questions for Thursday. I do want to mention that today is the 25th anniversary of the Kennedy Bissett plane crash, which we have covered in the Gross Room. So you definitely want to read up on the details of that. That's another thing I mentioned a pop-up that we were writing that, and he was like, "Oh, I can't believe it's been 25 years. I remember that."
I can't actually either, because I remember that as well. I mean,
I was 4,
it happened.
so I don't
You were
remember
already
that.
born. I know, but I remember it. And then when I look at it's the same thing even with 9/11 though. When I look at old news footage, I'm like, Jesus, really? The TV quality was that terrible back then? Like, I didn't even realize it. Just like, I guess now because we have like high def and stuff.
Yeah,
But you look at it and you're like, shit, this looks like old fashioned news coverage.
I mean, yeah, I think that all the time because I don't know about your husband, but mine is constantly making me watch baseball clips from the 80s. And I'm like, what was the point of even watching it? Like, you couldn't see anything going on at all.
I saw this meme the other day that said something like, in 6 years, it's going to be it'll be 50 years from 1980 or something. Like, how crazy is that?
Yeah, I
mean, for you, it's not crazy because you weren't born in the 80s, or even me. I was born in the late 70s. But when I think of the 80s, I'm like, oh, and that's when I was a kid and stuff. And then you're like, oh, 1980 in 6 years is going to be 50 years away. And you're just like, oh my God. But then, I mean, it makes sense because I'm like, well, I'm almost 50, whatever. But like,
yeah, but when you think about
it's
it,
still depressing.
I do see those memes sometimes that is like, the time between now and Friends is the same time between Friends and like the Dick Van Dyke Show.
I know. It's so nuts, right?
Yeah. So if you just think about just how different the Dick Van Dyke Show was to Friends and then to now, like, it's kind of weird. The 90s to now kind of meshes into the same time, I feel like it hasn't changed that much.
It does, but it doesn't. Like,
yeah.
It's completely, if you think about you, and you really should just do it with like children, right? Because you're just like, okay, you were a kid in the 90s. How was your life different than our little kids now? Like,
yeah,
way different,
totally.
right?
No,
so
totally.
it is different. Like, you're just getting old, and that's why you're like, that wasn't that long ago.
I will be 30 this year, so it's kind of nuts. But all right, guys, we will be back eventually with another Sick Shocking Stories episode. So make sure you submit yours to stories@motherknowsdeath.com. We will always be taking them. Give us a little teaser. Send us some photos if you want. The more details, the better, so we can accurately describe your story. But we've been getting some good ones in, so they've been cool to read.
Wait, but Thursday we're just doing the rest of the news that happened this week,
we're
right?
basically,
okay.
This was basically like an extended story of the week / celebrity section, but we'll be starting off basically the same on Thursday, but with the regular format.
Hopefully, unless hopefully nothing else. crazy happens. Let's just
Yeah, I mean,
we like crazy, but not this crazy.
Yeah, I mean, every week we have to cut, like 10 to 15 stories, but these, I mean, we're about, 40 minutes into this episode right now. This would have just been the first 2 categories of the show.
Yeah,
There's no way. It would have been 3 hours long.
All right, cool. We'll see you guys on Thursday.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Mother Knows Death. As a reminder, my training is as a pathologist assistant. I have a master's level education and specialize in anatomy and pathology education. I am not a doctor and I have not diagnosed or treated anyone, dead or alive, without the assistance of a licensed medical doctor. This show, my website, and social media accounts are designed to educate and inform people based on my experience working in pathology so they can make healthier decisions regarding their life and well-being. Always remember that science is changing every day and the opinions expressed in this episode are based on my knowledge of those subjects at the time of publication. If you are having a medical problem, have a medical question, or are having a medical emergency, please contact your physician or visit an urgent care center, emergency room, or hospital. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Mother Knows Death on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get podcasts. Thanks.